Hello, and welcome to our weekly dialogue with Helga Zepp. She's the founder and chairwoman of the Schiller Institute. It's September 26, 2024. I'm Harley Schlanger, and I'll be your host. You can send your questions and comments to Helga via email at questions@schillerinstitute.org, or you can post them on the chat page. Now, Helga, much of the world's attention has been focused these last days on the ongoing UN General Assembly meeting in New York City. The issue of war and peace is a central concern that's being taken up as the NATO war against Russia threatens to expand into World War III, and Netanyahu and Israel are expanding their war into southern Lebanon with brutal results. Zelenskyy gave an unhinged speech yesterday demanding more aid and the freedom to attack Russia. Biden's under relentless pressure from the City of London to give Ukraine the go-ahead to send missiles deep into Russian territory. And yesterday, President Putin issued a revised nuclear doctrine. What change make, and what are the implications of these changes?
Well, I think the world is better waking up to where we are at. De facto, Putin has really made the red line so clear for everyone to see that if there would be even an attack from a conventional country or a country with conventional weapons, but backed by a country which has nuclear weapons, and if there would be a massive air attack, that would give Russia the right, according to its new doctrine, to answer that with nuclear weapons. Now, that is very clearly referring to Ukraine, and given the fact that, various Russian spokesmen from Lavrov to Peskov, and I think Putin himself, have made very clear that all these Ukrainian attacks would not be possible without US or NATO guidance, satellite support, data support, and that de facto NATO is practically on the verge of being in war with Russia already. And if that additional step is taken, that Biden would basically capitulate to the demand that the United States gives the go-ahead for the use of long-range missiles for deep strikes into Russia by Ukraine, then that condition is fulfilled. So we are on the edge. I can only say these Western commentators, like in Germany, who are basically still saying Putin is bluffing. These people are so absolutely out of their mind that one can only say, we are really in danger of being governed by madmen and a media which is completely in the service of such madmen. So I can only say the only answer at this point is a broad public discussion. The demonstrations which are planned in the next period, both in the United States, but also in Germany in particular, they must be made a clear demonstration of the people, of masses of people, best hundreds, thousands of people, millions of people, that they absolutely oppose this. And, there must be finally the long needed discussion about where we are at and why this present policy of trying to maintain hegemony, when that hegemony is clearly already out of the window, that has to be reversed, and we have to put a completely different approach on the agenda. What we have been discussing for almost 3 years now, a new security and development architecture, which really must completely take a different approach, stop this geopolitical confrontation, and go into a mode of cooperation with the global majority of countries, which is clearly moving in a different direction. But I can only say, if people are not listening to this alarm bell, then, it may be too late for all of humanity.
Now, the other country that's in the geopolitical target zone is China. And you just returned from a trip there, a quick trip. What was your sense from being in China? I know you haven't been there for a little while. What's the situation there?
Well, I have not been there for a good year. And, the interesting thing is every time you return to China, even if it's only a year in the meantime, you are completely positively shocked about the changes for improvement, for embetterment. So the occasion why I traveled there this time was the International Peace Day, and I participated in the significant celebrations in Shandong province, in Jinan and Weifang. And this was a rather significant conference addressed by people from many, many countries who basically celebrated, China's contribution to a completely different approach. Now, the remarkable thing is China clearly has, made the breakthrough of being the leading country in many, many faculties. I don't have the exact number now, but something like of 60, 65 areas. China is now leading in about 55. So it's long past the point, where intellectual property has to be protected from China, because in the meantime, China is leading. So China was the first country to have been on the far side of the moon twice. They just returned a very successful mission bringing materials back from the far side of the moon. There has been nobody else before that. And similar, we visited in this several days celebration some of the high-tech firms where, China is on the state of the art in optics, in various new technologies. Then, also robotics, in automated factories, high-tech farms. And I can only say I visited China the first time in 71 and I also went to the countryside. There was no mechanization there. The people were really extremely poor, practically on a sub-Saharan level. And now they have agriculture, which is completely, smart. It's integrated with all kinds of digitalization and smart technologies. Absolutely nothing to be found like that in Europe or in the United States. And people are generally happy. So, the idea that China is only, making that a propaganda or, selling a narrative, China is doing what they're saying. They're improving the life of their own people. And the reason why the Chinese model is so much more attractive is because they are improving the lives of people around the world, especially in Africa, Asian countries. And that is expressed, in a completely different attitude. Now, it is not that the West is competing with the narrative. The West is still thinking that it's a question of the narrative, while China is doing it in reality and improving the life of so many people. So the contrast could not be bigger. And I can only say, this Peace Day, which was organized by the Chinese People's Association for Peace and Development, was an absolute demonstration that a different model of cooperation is absolutely possible and is the way to peace. And the idea of peace through development is a reality of what this new model really puts on the table.
Now, we just got a message in from Bob Van Hee. I believe he's still an elected official in Minnesota, responding to what you said on Putin. He said, Mr. Putin's most recent statements concerning U.S. involvement with supplying weapons to Ukraine, to me, it's a perfect timing to wake up the world to the stupidity on the part of the so-called U.S. leadership. He urges that a message be drafted to our elected officials for people to make their voice heard, to stop this insanity, And he said, if we draft such a message, I and others will send it to our leaders in D.C. Stop the stupidity of being complicit with Ukraine's involvement in attacking Russia. So that's from one supporter in Minnesota. Now, Helga, you mentioned the importance of the global majority as seen at the United Nations moving against the policies of the US and NATO. There's a question here from someone who said, I hear you talk about the global South, but the global South is not really unified. It's not powerful enough. How could they take on the City of London and NATO?
Well, the global South is, a very diverse combination of countries. They are trying to create a new system. There will be the meeting of the BRICS, the annual meeting in Kazan in Russia from the 22nd to the 24th of October. And while I'm not privy to the plans which are being made for that meeting, all signs are, that you may have a major step forward in the effort to create a different payment system, a different credit system, that all the efforts to basically enhance the economic power of the global South countries will be brought a big step forward. Now, it could be a surprise. It could be a new Bretton Woods. This is mooted by an article by Pepe Escobar. I don't have any facts to think that will happen. It could happen. In any case, I think that the key question is we have to convince the countries of the global North, of the collective West, of previously or still NATO, that they should cooperate. We cannot have a situation where the world is being divided into two new blocks, where you have NATO, becoming global NATO with, confrontation, Middle East on the verge of a potential regional war which could go out of control. The situation in Ukraine absolutely on the verge of a catastrophe. Then, more provocations in the Taiwan Strait, in the South China Sea. I mean, we have to get off this course of confrontation, or else it's a mistake. The situation is so absolutely tense that, a slight human error, a technical failure, some series of, mishaps could end civilization. We are at that point. So, I think it's not the question of the global South against the global North. I think we have to absolutely come to a point where we in the West say we cooperate. The BRICS countries are moving in the right direction. China is having clearly a completely different approach. They're thinking about a long-term harmonious development of all nations. They are not trying to gain hegemony. I really have studied this now for half a century. And, there is absolutely no way how China wants to replace the US hegemon. That's not their intention. And it would be very, very easy for the countries of the collective West to just say, we cooperate with that new system which is emerging, because we have enough problems we have to solve together, overcoming poverty, underdevelopment, creating a health system for the whole world, make sure that every child has access to universal education. I mean, there's so many problems, which best would be solved together. And I think that is the absolute step we have to make. And, we have the choice. Do we want to have World War III if we stick to this confrontation against China, Russia, and by implication, the global South? Or do we go in the direction of thinking that we can only solve all problems together? And I think that is a question where everybody personally is challenged to participate in creating the solution.
We have another question about the BRICS conference coming up from a supporter who works with African governments and non-governmental organizations. He said he has two questions about the BRICS meeting coming up on October 22nd. Is it possible that they would be ready to introduce a new currency? Because I fear if they wait too long, the US and the Brits will sabotage their initiative. And secondly, he asks, will you be there or the Schiller Institute have representatives there? I think it's important that the Schiller Institute be there to help shape the discussion.
Well, I think that there are efforts to move in the direction of a new currency, but it's not an easy question. I mean, just think about the mistakes which were made in the creation of the euro, because you cannot put economies and countries of completely different levels of economic development into one integrated economic and currency zone without creating massive problems for those who are less developed. So this has to be very carefully crafted. And I know that there are some excellent economists both in Russia and in China putting a great amount of effort into this task. So I can only say, between moving too quickly and moving too slowly, I don't think that the danger comes from that. I think the only danger is that, forces in the West, like the British have demonstrated with Keir Starmer's visit in Washington, that they are trying to, go for the military confrontation in order to compensate for their weakness in their economy. That the effort to dampen the new economic system will be in the military field, bringing us into World War III. That is the danger. Now, I think the Schiller Institute, EIR, we will cover for sure the event. I think our efforts to shape what is going on will not be in Kazan, because that will be a government meeting. But I think we will for sure, provide all kinds of solutions, like in particular the idea of the new level of the new development and security architecture, which is what the Schiller Institute is promoting. Similarly, China is going in the direction of Xi Jinping has proposed the Global Security Initiative, the Global Development Initiative, and the Global Civilizational Initiative, which is going in a similar direction. There is a great affinity, but I think the unique contribution what we can make is to try to educate the people in the West about the incredible potential which would exist if they stopped their geopolitical spectacle, put that off their nose and think in terms of cooperation on a completely new level, thinking humanity as it should be in 100 years from now, and then, take that wisdom of the future to solve the problems in the present.
You're listening to Helga Zepp of the Schiller Institute. We still have time for questions. You can send them to us at questions@schillerinstitute.org. Now, Helga, I have two questions on the elections that just took place last Sunday in Germany. One writes, after the Schulz coalition was devastated by voters in 3 German states, what next? Wait 1 year for the national elections, or can there be something done to stop the damage they're doing? And the second question was, how powerful is the extreme right in Europe and Germany?
Well, I think the election results in these 3 states, Thuringia, Saxony, and Brandenburg, has clearly completely changed the political situation in Germany. I think the best outcome is the disappearance, the pulverization of the Greens. This is, some people said, this is the grains of Ibicus, that the culprits reveal themselves and then be brought to justice. because of their own failure to keep the crime hidden. Now, the crime the Greens have committed is the complete destruction of the German economy. They got the bill presented, the leadership resigned, and the Green Youth, their youth organization, not only the entire leadership resigned, but they all left the party, hinting that they want to create a new party of the left, which means that the Greens, at least for the time being, are finished. And that is a good thing, because, the green policy is what has been the most devastating element in the destruction of the German economy, apart from geopolitical factors like the sabotage of Nord Stream 2, which becomes an issue, by the way, as well. Again, because the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service just put out a statement that they are now certain that it was the sabotage by the British and the Americans which caused the Nord Stream pipeline to be destroyed. But I think in terms of the election, I think it could very well be that this present coalition government does not last for another year. I think there are many factors involved, which all these parties are in turmoil. The Social Democrats, should they keep Scholz? I mean, the alternative would be Pistorius. That would be even worse, because this defense minister wants to make Germany war ready. I think that Germany needs to really have a clear rejection of the war policy. That is what unites the AfD, at least in part, and the Wagenknecht party, BSW. I think that's a positive element. The problem is that the right wing, what you summarized by right wing, is a very mixed bag. There are many people who are quite reasonable, who are for all the right policies, rejecting the war policy of NATO, being for nuclear energy, being for all kinds of things one can support. But I think the problem is that they keep certain very unholy elements within their party, which they should kick out, and then one could work with them. And so far, they have been unwilling to do that. So I think we are seeing a tectonic change. And, the problem is the mass media prevents people from having an idea of the alternative. For example, if you ask the general people in Germany, what do they know about the BRICS? They know almost nothing. They have no idea what a tremendous chance for the future is arising there. For example, Germany being an export nation, it would be the most natural thing for Germany to cooperate with, growing markets if Germany would participate with other countries of the BRICS and hopefully other European countries and even the United States, to create 2 to 3 billion new productive jobs in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America. That would be the way to solve the migrant problems in a human way. Africa will have 2.5 billion people by the year 2050. And the only way there will be a positive future and not hundreds of thousands of migrants coming to Europe, drowning in the Mediterranean and being pushed back by Frontex in a disgusting way, which is what has been happening so far, would be that Europe turns around and says we cooperate with the BRICS in creating 2 billion new productive jobs until the year 2050 and helping Africa to modernize. That would require joint ventures between China and European nations and other nations around the world. And that is the direction in which we have to push the whole thing. And then there is hope.
We have a question from Professor, I guess it's Larafi. He said, with the decision to authorize Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia, if that happens, and to deploy nuclear missiles in Germany, we expect a surge of people in NATO countries to flood the streets, as they did in the campaign against the Euro missiles in the 1980s.
Well, that is clearly what we have to accomplish because, the situation right now is that all signs are preparation for war. There is talk that the German society must be prepared to handle soon very large number of wounded people coming back from, all kinds of fronts at the east. The Red Cross is even told that they have to be integrated into such a system. The health system in Germany is supposed to prioritize wounded from the coming wars. I mean, this is insanity. And fortunately, there are now more people waking up to this danger. I think the next big demonstration will be on the 3rd of October in Berlin. And it is required that, we really make sure that this demonstration becomes a very, very big one. So if you have any chance to help building that, on the 28th, there will be a big rally in the United States. That should be absolutely, made as large as possible. And, I think we have to really arouse the people. If you know your neighbors, your colleagues, you should talk to them about it. Talk to them about, because people have somehow lost the memory of the horrors of the last world wars in the 20th century, and the younger generations seem to have been so much influenced by war games, by computer games, that they have lost the sense of what it means if you have cities like Dresden being, flattened to the ground, and the misery which went along with that. In one of the last IPC meetings, we had a professor from Germany who lived in Dresden as a young boy when the bombing occurred, and he was very emotional about reporting this. And I think that reality must be brought home to people nowadays, because if it comes to a Third World War, I think there are many countries of which nothing would be left. And if it becomes a global war, which is very likely once you start to use nuclear weapons, all civilization would vanish, because the nuclear war would be followed by 10 years of nuclear winter. And the likelihood that the people who think that they can survive this in their bunkers, which is a very small percentage of privileged people, I think that will be a nightmare which will not function in reality. Because the idea that you live for several years in a bunker and then come out and continue your life, I think it's not a very realistic perspective. But that's what some people are discussing these days.
We have two more questions on this media issue, and also requests for you to give people a better sense of how to organize around it. One is from the UK, where someone writes, the media labels anyone against the narrative as far right. But is there really a far right in Germany? What are their policies? And the other question is from Pat, who writes that the mainstream media controls much of the population. How can truth come to expose that stranglehold? What do we have to do to get the truth to people?
Well, I think first of all, there is a sort of a poem by Friedrich Schiller. It's not exactly a poem, it's more like one of these distichons, they're called, where he says, if you cannot be a whole, then attach yourself to one. With other words, wenn du kein Ganzes sein kannst, dann schließe einem Ganzen dich an. And I think that is true, because if you're only an individual, you feel almost helpless in front of what we are facing. That's why you should join tomorrow the International Peace Coalition. This is an effort to unite the international peace movement, which we are undertaking since more than a year. I think tomorrow will be the 69th consecutive meeting, where every week we are meeting. And we have been growing quite steadily. Last couple of times we had more than 1,000 live participants. and then many people are watching the video afterwards. And there we always discuss every week what to do. And I think one of the earlier questioner who said, why don't you put out a message? Maybe we will present tomorrow a short message, that people have something to be armed with to call elected officials, use the social media, talk to all your relatives, colleagues, friends, get them mobilized, because we are really in an incredible moment of danger. And I think that eventually that is, I'm quite confident that the control of the media is crumbling. The fact that in Germany we had these election results with two parties pulverizing the liberals, the Greens, and are basically expressing concern of the population, a clear statement against the war. So it's not impossible, but I would say the most immediate thing you can do is join the IPC tomorrow. Tell all your friends about it. We will have again an extraordinary combination of speakers. There is, to my knowledge, no platform which meets regularly with such a high-level expert exchange of views, always on the topics of the day. And you can be sure that tomorrow we will discuss at length the implication of the fact that Russia has changed its nuclear doctrine in response to the policies of NATO. And I think that is something which I think it will get through to the population, because we are reaching now really a point of almost no return, but not yet. So it's still time to do something.
On that, we have a message that just came in from someone who said, my friend told me that I should get on the International Peace Coalition call last week. I was skeptical. I had always thought that the LaRouche movement was somewhat marginal, and the idea of taking on the international fight was somewhat hopeless. But I'm glad my friend persisted. She'd asked me for weeks to get on. I got on. It was incredible. And she writes, I urge everybody to join the call and to get active. So the call is at 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And I think this note shows that people are being moved by what we're doing. The situation is in flux. There's a vacuum for real discussion because of the role of the media, but that's what we're doing. We're changing that. So Helga, any final words?
No, but this is clearly the most dangerous moment in world history ever. And, rather than hiding and thinking, how can I preserve my personal life, which in the Second World War, those people who tried to avoid the war, they ended up being hit because it turned out that there was no hiding place. And in the danger of a Third World War, there is no hiding place for sure. So mobilize whatever positive image you have about humanity and act on the basis of love for humanity, because what motivates me the strongest is the idea that if we don't solve this problem, then all the beautiful things which have been created by generations before will be lost. The music of Beethoven, of other composers, of the poetry of all the beautiful poets around the world will all have been written for nothing. And it would be a shame, So it's really something you have to mobilize inside yourself to have the strength to be part of the solution and stop this and create a better world situation with a new world economic order by cooperating with the BRICS countries, because that would be the easy way out.
Well, Helga, I know you're tired from jet lag, from just getting back from your trip, but thank you so much for joining us today. And again, everybody should join us tomorrow at 11 in the morning Eastern Time You can find the link at theschillerinstitute.com. So until tomorrow, Helga, we'll see you later.
Till tomorrow.